Previous episode.
Ariadne is asking for an explanation from Count Cesare as she doesn't appreciate being pushed into the limelight with no regard for her reputation. Then Cesare only claims that if the end is well, everything will be well, at the same time proving that he isn't wrong about any of his actions. Ariadne also starts to protest against his familiar tone with her, despite the fact that she doesn't even think of having a conversation with him at all. The moment she introduces herself as the second daughter of the cardinal for this diocese, Cesare stops her to continue talking while poking the middle of her forehead, claiming that she is yet to have a formal debut, otherwise she is still considered a child. So he isn't about to have a little girl answering back to him about the way he decides to address her. He even goes forward with his words while mocking her by saying that she is wearing a garish little yellow frock which is only used by children. After that, when Ariadne is about to answer back at him, Cesare claims that he already knew that the real Vincenzo Delgado was found murdered before the auction started, and Ariadne is surprised to hear it from him as he didn't even think of protesting the situation. And he only kept on dumping the whole matter into her lap for her to handle. He then states that it would have been a high-risking situation for him if he took a step as the king's bastard, since he isn't allowed to use the crown's authority to handle the matter. Ariadne then remarks that nobody ever advised him to get involved for the instance, and at that time, Cesare claims that he came all the way to see her again and claims that it wasn't for an idle chat because he has some important thing to discuss with her, but it is quite simple for the matter. He then proposes that he will be paying her a handsome amount for the heart of the deep blue sea, which changes the whole situation for Ariadne as darkness engulfs her whole face. As soon as Ariadne hears him, she starts to shout at him while Cesare claims that he has the most valuable diamonds in his collections by mentioning the name of Linville Swan, while insisting that he is thinking of trading with her. It seems that Cesare is also interested in throwing in 6,000 ducato on top, and after hearing the name of Linville Swan, Ariadne starts to react as she has once heard of the diamond which is usually given by lovers to claim their true love, the same item that Ariadne used to covet among Cesare's possessions, but her dream wasn't fulfilled in the end as she was betrayed by the person she loved. But she starts to fume in anger that she didn't even have to dedicate her best years, commit murder or stake her own life on his behalf, but yet Cesare is interested to give away such items to her of his own volition. Even after knowing that the Linville Swan is far more precious than what she has in her grasp right now, Ariadne decides to reject the idea suggested by Cesare by claiming that she cannot leave the fortune granted by the king and the queen just so she could trade it with another. When Cesare didn't understand the situation, Ariadne insists that the item was entrusted by the crown to her and none other, so she isn't about to think of it as a mere trinket to be bargained for while squeezing her hand in anger. From there, she even continues to claim that he doesn't have any kind of sense judging right and wrong, as she hoped that he will have more discernment than what he has right now, while praying for him, hoping that he will come to his senses someday. But as Ariadne is about to leave his sight, he instantly commands and grabs her hand forcefully, while she continues to insist that he should let her go, but Cesare is fired up about the things that Ariadne said to him already. While Ariadne continues to command him to let her go, Alfonso comes in the middle to protect and respect her opinion about the situation that arose in front of him. As Cesare fails to listen to his command, Alfonso repeats himself once again, which makes Cesare bite the corner of his lip while bowing in front of him. But even while bowing down at him, Alfonso notices that he still hasn't let go of Ariadne's hand, which makes him remark on the fact that they haven't met previously before. When Cesare acknowledges the manner of the matter, he decides to let go of Ariadne's hand to kneel down in front of Alfonso, uttering his name as the Royal Highness while illustrating himself to be his servant of him, extending a greeting toward the Royal Highness. Then, instead of replying to Count Cesare, Alfonso starts chatting with Ariadne, claiming that the Marquis and the Marchioness de Chibaut are both waiting for her presence, so he shouldn't be keeping them waiting for the fact that the matter is indeed important. Alfonso then offers Ariadne to head in with him as he was about to head in that way anyways, and before heading in, Alfonso says to Cesare that it was quite a pleasure to make his acquaintance, so he can be leaving soon enough. Then before leaving the location, Ariadne claims that the fake statue damaged the floor when it fell, so Cesare should be the one to take care of the repair costs, which then starts to annoy Cesare so much that he starts cursing her name when Alfonso and Ariadne head into the salon while clenching his fist. While Ariadne and Alfonso both are alone, He states that he is quite impressed by the whole endeavor and asks her how she was able to know that the statue was not real from the beginning. Ariadne then claims that it was only an assumption, but she is now relieved that her suspicions ended up becoming reality. Alfonso claims that he is now relieved to know that he wasn't able to buy the thing only because of her wisdom, as he has already learned a lesson from her. When Alfonso is interested to know why did she have to act on her instincts while she didn't even know about the matter entirely, Ariadne claims that she never wanted to see him embarrassed after purchasing the statue, which makes both of them blush at the same time as they continue to have a hard time looking at each other, while Alfonso keeps on wondering if Ariadne truly has a soft spot for him. She then goes on to ask Alfonso for a favor that he was able to save all of his 2,000 ducato, and in exchange, Ariadne asks for a favor, and she makes Alfonso promise that he will be granting a wish in return. When Alfonso asks what kind of wish she might have for him, Ariadne claims that she isn't entirely sure about it, but she will be letting him know when the perfect time comes, which Alfonso agrees to with a big smile on his face. Then at that moment, Alfonso bids farewell to Ariadne, saying that the people might have been looking for him, and after waving her hand right at the prince, Ariadne continues to wonder when she will get to meet him once again. But her mood then soon changes when Alfonso calls out to her, saying that he will be writing to her soon enough, so she should be writing back to him as well, which brings quite a smile to her face. Then a few days later, Ariadne is called into her father's chamber, and it seems that her father is about to hand the matter to her of being in charge of organizing her own debutante ball. But at the same time, he claims that the budget for it will be 150 ducato, and she must be arranging the debutante ball with only the money which he is about to grant her, which makes Ariadne wonder what is happening because it is barely half of the usual budget for a ball. But Ariadne ends up agreeing to her father's proposition, knowing that fortunately she has previous life experiences in managing the royal palace's budget, so bookkeeping is naturally second nature for her by now. Soon a tea party is hosted by the daughter of Viscount Leonati, but even though Isabella is being taken care of by everyone present at the party, she seems rather uninterested, feeling that the whole thing is quite tedious for her. When she wasn't taking any of the offered sweets to her, Letitia commands her people to bring the finest Gallican sweets that she has in the house. Then when Isabella glances at the butler, she realizes that the butler is quite handsome despite the fact that the nobles are less beautiful than him, as if the good looks are wasted on those of low birth. While she thinks of spending the time more interestingly, she notices that Camelia is staring at the butler named Domestico, while she is still sitting next to her fiancé. As Isabella calls out Camelia for the fact, Camelia starts to stutter while being nervous, at the same time claiming that she doesn't know what she is trying to mean, which surely angers her fiancé Ottavio even more. To put more fuel into the fire, Isabella holds Ottavio's face, claiming that he is quite beautiful himself, insisting that he doesn't need to take any notice of the help. When the situation is about to get more intense, Ottavio calls out Isabella as Miss de Mere, but Isabella makes him hush by saying that he should be calling her out by her name instead, while focusing on getting the matter deeper than it already is. When Ottavio agrees with the cunning Isabella, Camelia on the other hand starts to fume in rage, but cannot answer anything back to Isabella, as she herself is quite caught in the moment. While Isabella continues to feel dreamy, thinking that she is the most coveted woman in all of San Carlo, the maid comes in front of her announcing that Miss Julia de Baltazar has finally arrived to join the tea party, and Julia is the daughter of Marquis de Baltazar. The moment Julia enters the room, the noble youngsters greet her into the room to have a seat, which starts to enrage Isabella as the focus has already shifted toward Julia instead of her. She continues to sit alone, wondering what Julia has that she lacks, as everyone is surrounding her as if she is some sort of goddess. She thinks that why would Julia have to be called out by the name, while Isabella is only represented by her family name, as if she is merely an accessory to that of her father, as if she is already sick of bearing the de Mere name. She thinks that once time and her father passes, she will belong to her brother instead of her, but she still has the option of basking in her own glory, which she deserves by turning into the crown princess. She thinks that is going to be the only way for her to own her name, and she will be doing anything in her grasp to make it happen. On the other hand, Ariadne is quite thoughtful of the situation about the ball she is about to attend, and notices that all of her suspicions are correct, that she is left with only half of the amount people usually need to make the ball happen. Soon Madame Marini from dressmaker Rajon enters the room to get her desired measurements while complimenting all her body features. When Marini tries to persuade her into having more revealing clothing, she realizes that she will have to change that as she has already faced trouble in her previous life, as she doesn't want to have any slander on her name. But both Marini and the maid suggest otherwise, as Marini claims that she will not be letting her down by swearing on her name, and when Marini mentions the matter of her partner, Ariadne starts to dream about Alfonso. But instead of Alfonso, a man named Zanobi de Rossi approaches her to accompany her to the ball instead, and the man even goes on far as to pinch her nose, which starts to annoy the hell out of her. The man doesn't just stop there, he continues to slander in front of her about her height, which starts to blow away her confidence in an instant, and she then predicts that there is only one man who can help her in this matter. While Alfonso writes Ariadne about her safety and placement, Ariadne writes him about joining the ball with her, and surprisingly, Alfonso has accepted her offer to do so in an instant, which surprises her as she doesn't recall ever receiving such unconditional kindness before. Meanwhile, Cesare's mother brings in the topic of Ariadne having a debutante ball soon, and starts to slander her name after hearing that Ariadne is about to be accompanied by the nephew of Lucrezia, while her own son will be superior without any kind of doubt. It seems that his mother is quite interested in making Cesare join the debutante ball, but it seems that he finds it rather problematic. The moment his mother starts to protest his acts, Cesare leaves the room with his coat as the woman slams her wine glass on the table in anger, swearing that she will make it happen anyways, no matter what happens. At the same time, Isabella ends up hearing that Ariadne is about to have a dress made by Rajan, which continues to make her wonder how Ariadne was able to achieve such a service. It makes Isabella conspire when the time comes to ball by choosing a white dress, even though it is only customary for the debutante and her partner to be the only ones dressed in white. She makes a plot to act on her actions by claiming that her sister wanted her to dress in some matching clothing, as they are quite close, so Ariadne isn't able to outshine her at any cost. Both her maid and Isabella continue to conspire about how to make it quite problematic for Ariadne, and soon Isabella gets the idea of tinkering with the breast pads Ariadne wears with all the dresses, thinking that it will cause problems for her. Then, on the day of the debutante ball, Ariadne is looking quite the gorgeous woman while shining greatly in front of everyone. Sancha the maid then presents hooks in front of Ariadne for the bindings, as they are normally used for keeping the bosom pads in place, while Maria continues to sweat in fear, knowing that Sancha isn't being truthful at all. Soon people call out to Ariadne saying that her partner has arrived, and she starts to get prepared, quickly thinking that Alfonso is there already. Soon Ariadne and Alfonso meet, both wearing white dresses, and both of them continue to stare at each other as if they are watching each other for the first time in their life. While both of them are talking to each other, Zanobi de Rossi barges into the room and soon realizes that Ariadne is about to replace him with none other than Alfonso. But when Zanobi doesn't seem to know any kind of manners and even points his finger at Ariadne, Alfonso ends up grabbing his hand to teach him some manners, as Ariadne already has a partner for the ball. Zanobi even goes as far as to throw a punch at Alfonso, and at that time, Alfonso reveals his sword to dare the man to make a move on him. The rascal then plops down on the ground yelling, and at that moment, Ariadne orders his cousin to introduce himself, as he is in the presence of Etruscan's heir, His Highness Prince Alfonso de Carlo. After realizing what kind of crime he has committed, Zanobi starts to introduce himself by kneeling down to Alfonso and asking for his forgiveness. But when Alfonso notices that the man wouldn't have remorse if he wasn't a prince, he then commands Zanobi to apologize to Ariadne with full-proof explanation, and Zanobi then decides to kneel down to both of them before leaving. Then for some reason, Alfonso looks down, and it seems that he is quite sad after knowing how Ariadne is treated in her own home. He then reaches to touch her face, saying that she doesn't have to stand for this, while naming her a true wonder of the world. Then, when Alfonso apologizes to her by remarking on the fact that he might have ruined his hair, Ariadne starts to laugh after noticing the simplicity of the prince. Soon the debutante hall is about to be started. The cardinal commands everyone to extend a warm welcome on behalf of his second eldest daughter, Ariadne, while holding a wine glass in his hand. Ariadne and Alfonso then make themselves present in front of the whole crowd inside, and at the same time, Isabella starts to burn in jealousy after noticing Alfonso with Ariadne. But while a royal introductory message is about to be presented, Cesare enters the hall with an announcement letter in his hand, claiming that he is about to be presented as her partner for the debutante hall, which surprises Ariadne as she wasn't expecting something like that to happen even in her wildest nightmares. Even though Cesare can be seen representing himself as the partner for Ariadne's ball, it seems that the only reason Cesare is doing this is that he was ordered and forced by his mother. But when he notices that Alfonso is the man accompanying her to the ball, he suddenly starts to get interested in it as he desires to ruin their day. He then announces that he was advised by the king himself to accompany Ariadne, and after completing his lines, he goes on to raise his hand for Ariadne as he is ready to take her hand for the dance, claiming that he just wants to complete the order of the king. When Alfonso detects the deepening of the situation, he starts convincing Ariadne that she will be fine from then on and goes on to bid farewell to her, which makes Cesare smirk on his own as if he is conspiring something. When Cesare starts dancing with Ariadne, he is quite impressed to see her from up close as he didn't expect her to be so suited up and classy. He then begins promising then how he will start acting nicely with her, but her answers make him realize that she isn't like the other women. He then starts thinking how thrilling it will be for him to steal her away from Alfonso, as she is his sole love interest. At the same time, Isabella notices Alfonso standing all alone, and Isabella goes on to drop the vase to make it look like he asked her to dance with him in the public. When Alfonso grasps the situation further, he doesn't have anything else to do in his ability, so he ends up agreeing to her proposition. Isabella starts conspiring against her sister to Alfonso, but he isn't a kid who can be swayed that easily, which angers Isabella a lot. On the other hand, as soon as the dance ends, Ariadne runs away from Cesare to meet Alfonso once again as the waltz is about to begin. When Alfonso meets Ariadne once again, he asks for her hand to begin the waltz with her as he knows that she will agree, and it happens accordingly. Then while dancing, Alfonso claims that he couldn't realize the beauty of Isabella as he only could talk about her having a resemblance to her sister. When they are ready to take the dance to the next level, suddenly the breast part of the dress rips out, which astonishes them both. The moment her dress rips apart from the middle, Ariadne couldn't help but wonder, thinking that now the whole audience can see her bosom in front of them. But as soon as the incident occurs, Alfonso covers her dress with his jacket to get her to the powder room, but Ariadne instructs him to take her to the second room. As soon as they get inside the bedroom, the maids hurry up to help Ariadne as she is badly in need of their assistance. While Alfonso tries to help her with mental support, Ariadne starts trembling, remembering what had happened in her previous life because of the comments and remarks made by the general public. When she begins to sob all alone, Alfonso goes on to give her some mental support, but he is also unable to do so. But after getting some courage on his behalf, he then goes on to hug Ariadne to console her, making her believe that everything will be all right as he is beside her. Ariadne then starts to feel better, but she is still in shock, thinking that everyone had seen her out and open. Alfonso tries to calm her down by praising her beauty, but Ariadne doesn't seem to understand. Then when Alfonso elaborates on her beauty, knowing the reasons for him to cover her body as he didn't want anyone else to see her, suddenly, Alfonso gets up from his seat, claiming that he has overstayed, and leaves the room to let her have some privacy. While Ariadne contemplates what has happened, Alfonso tries to keep himself calm, knowing that he has to suppress his urges to stay as a gentleman. On the other hand, noblewomen continue to discuss the unfortunate events, and Isabella is still unsatisfied with the fact that it wasn't fake bosoms made out of foam that came out in the open. Knowing that she has to dirt on Ariadne's character, Isabella claims in front of everyone that Ariadne might have done it intentionally, blaming her desperation, which starts to make everyone talk. When the women around Isabella continue to put dirt on Ariadne's name while including the name of Alfonso in the list, Alfonso instantly calls Isabella out on her jealousy. Isabella then tries to blackmail Alfonso with her innocent look, which gets supported by the women around her, and Isabella continues to feel like she is about to get embraced by Alfonso soon enough. As Isabella starts to sob in front of the whole crowd of nobles, Alfonso falls into a great dilemma as he doesn't know what to do anymore, and Isabella continues to keep her act of being a sobbing innocent noble lady, so Alfonso gets forced to console her. Then when Alfonso is about to approach Isabella to console her, she starts to think that her planning is going well according to the results, but the moment the situation is about to go further, Ariadne enters the room having even more emanating aura around her, which astonishes the crowd. At that moment, Ariadne approaches her sister to ask what made her cry this way, And when Isabella doesn't go on to answer, Adrienne repeats her question, which gets followed by again a hollow drama created by Isabella. It seems that Isabella is trying to sway Adrienne's mind about the things she said about her body, so she starts to sugarcoat her words to make them more appropriate to Adrienne, which starts to awestruck Alfonso as well. But Adrienne isn't someone who can be manipulated this easily, so she directly questions Isabella about how she could say those things about her body while sobbing at the same time to flip her own game on her. Now this time, Adrienne is the one who is getting on the nerve of Isabella, claiming that she is scared and everything, mentioning that she doesn't want the sort of dirty praises that makes people look at her in a different way. The whole drama starts to make people talk about the whole incident, and they paint Adrienne as the victim once again, and they begin to shame Isabella, considering that she must be the main culprit who wanted to harm her younger sister. People even start to mention that maybe the reason for being a half-sister manipulated her into doing something like that, which is regarded as despicable by everyone. Then Isabella states that that isn't what she meant, and the moment she is about to touch Adrienne's hand, she moves away, saying that even though she might be her half-sister, the whole incident is too shameful and mean toward her, since she did everything to be a good sibling to her. When Adrienne starts to walk away from Isabella, she starts calling her back, saying that the whole thing was a big misunderstanding, but her way of approaching things doesn't work, as the nobles behind her start talking about her activities. They can now predict that Isabella matched each other's clothes out of spite, as the whole incident is now transparent to everyone. Then they begin to discuss how Isabella was the one to spread the embarrassing news, as she claimed that her sister tore her dress because she enjoyed receiving the attention, which paints Isabella as a wicked person who would do anything to go against her sister. As people continue to talk about it, Adrienne is seen smirking devilishly, moving away from the scene, as she can now guess that her plan surely worked in the end. The moment Adrienne reaches the stairs of the second floor, Isabella approaches her once again, calling from behind, and the moment she notices that Adrienne didn't hear her, she starts haggling with her by holding onto her hand while cursing her by saying various names. Isabella is trying her best to confront her sister, claiming that she made up lies about her, and the moment she tries to raise her hand against Adrienne, Adrienne grabs her hand, almost instantly, to call her names, whispering in her ears to show her true color. Adrienne even wishes that Isabella can die anytime she wants, and warns her to be careful the next time, as there are chances that she will be hurting herself if she ends up crossing the line, which gets Isabella quite speechless. She has nothing more to do than curse in Ariadne's name. Sometimes later, Isabella is seen contemplating her choices, as she predicted that Adrienne would never utter a word against her, but now all her dreams are crashing down on her head. She realizes that she will have to make a move as well, and it will be by using her countless friends. By using them, Isabella thinks that Adrienne will be completely isolated from high society. Then Isabella goes on to cry directly to her friends to let them know about her bad luck and everything, so they can instantly start consoling her for it. She starts telling them how Adrienne was the one who wanted her to wear a white dress, and she doesn't know why the others are talking about it, as if she wanted to do it herself. Isabella then adds that she even lent her clothes to Adrienne and helped her to adjust to San Carlo, and not only that, but also she even helped her in her studies, asking if she didn't give much effort to her. People around her start consoling Isabella, saying that she got betrayed by Adrienne because of having Alfonso as the guest, as she is jealous of her. But while the whole scene was unfolding, someone wasn't having much fun watching. Isabella plotting against her sister, who has no knowledge of the background whatsoever. The moment Lady Baldassare calls out to Isabella, saying that she can see the straps that support her breast pocket, Isabella yells out, gasping and calling all of her friends traitors for revealing her. Then Lady Baldassare approaches Adrienne to invite her to the tea party that she is about to hold at her house the next week, and Adrienne couldn't believe that she is living in reality right now, as it never happened before in her whole life ever. Adrienne immediately accepts her invitation and states that she will be looking forward to the event gladly. In the next scene, the cardinal looks shocked after knowing that 300 ducatos will be cost for a simple ball and 500 ducatos for an extravagant one, and the fact that he only let Adrienne have only 150 ducatos to prepare for her ball starts to feel obscene to him. But not only that, the most shocking thing is that Adrienne managed to save 12 ducatos in the end, while 150 wasn't enough when it comes to the ball and everything. Then Adrienne leaves the detailed ledger to her father obediently, and the cardinal is shocked to see that Adrienne can create a ledger in the first place, as he never taught her how to create a ledger. She then elaborates that she found a book in his study room, so she followed and tried to make over it from there. After hearing that, the cardinal immediately orders someone to call Lucretia into his room, and she is in a dilemma about being called in all of a sudden. At the same time, Lucretia is confused to see Adrienne behind her, and when she finishes looking back at Adrienne, the cardinal demands her answer about how she had been managing their money, but as the cardinal has never asked this sort of question, she is astonished since the man has never interfered with household affairs. But then the idea of him getting an idea of his husband realizing that she had been pickpocketing money for her family back home starts to take a heavy toll on her. The cardinal then brings up the fact amount of money her wife used for Ippolito's farewell party last time, even though there were only a few guests. To begin with, she still went over 5,000 ducados without taking permission from him. Then he also brings up the fact that she used 50 ducados just for Isabella's dress for the ball. Instead of backing down, Lucretia claims that it is natural for someone to use up that amount of money while hosting a party, and to back up her statement, she starts adding the fact that it has been 20 years since she started managing the household affairs, so he should have some confidence to trust her. Feeling that yelling might get her better foot ground, she starts remarking on the idea that now he cannot have the level of trust in his own wife, and at that moment, the cardinal fires up, remarking that she should be the one repaying the trust he has given her up until now. He starts elaborating how Ariadne managed to host a ball with 138 ducados, as it just tells him how extravagantly she had been spending their family money. The amount of 138 ducados starts carrying a heavy mark inside her mind, and the cardinal makes the decision to have Ariadne directly manage her own expenses, while Isabella isn't allowed to spend more money than Ariadne either. But Lucretia isn't about to take it all in, since she doesn't think that it is fair for him to let Ariadne have a fraction of her authority, since she considers Ariadne as a concubine's daughter. She starts blaming the cardinal that he isn't willing to consider herself as his wife right now, as she starts bringing up the fact that Ariadne is nothing else than a bastard's child to her, so she cannot have permission to deal with family finance. Instead of listening to the blabbering of Lucretia, the cardinal shouts at her, saying that she must not have him repeat his words, while ordering her to get out of the room, making his decision final. Lucretia starts to think that the main culprit in this whole thing is Ariadne and starts to look at her narrowly, but ends up leaving the room, knowing that she isn't about to change the situation anyhow right now. As she leaves, the cardinal starts discussing the matter of what happened during the ball and asks Ariadne if she thinks that there was an issue with the dress shop to know about her opinion on the incident. Ariadne starts becoming honest, with her father stating that the incident started to arise after she received the dress, and she adds that she will be looking into it further so she can inform him about it later. Before finishing the conversation, the cardinal suggests that she should be knowledgeable enough when it comes to managing her subordinates and advises her to be careful in the future. But above all that, the cardinal announces that she will be receiving 10 ducados every month going forward from now on as a reward from him personally, so she can manage her own finances, which makes Ariadne feel that she might have gotten to the first checkpoint of her mission, as she now has a fraction of Lucretia's authority. Then, while Ariadne is having a conversation with her maid, she asks Ariadne why she didn't think of letting the cardinal know about the reality behind the dress incident, and Ariadne remarks on the fact that they don't have any definitive evidence just yet. It seems that when the ball ended, both of them thoroughly examined the dress, as there were two questionable points. The first one is that the hook was made from silver, and the second one is that there were traces that someone had deliberately torn off the thread that was sewn up front of the dress, which made it easy to rip the dress even with the slightest pull. Even though Ariadne believes that Isabella must be the one who is behind this whole incident, she doesn't have any kind of evidence that will be enough to convince her father. She then suggests to her maid Sancha that they should start gathering evidence one by one, which will be enough to destroy Isabella with one critical hit. At the dinner table, the cardinal announces that the incidents that happen inside the house cannot be leaked to the public, and suggests to Ariadne that she cannot criticize her sister Isabella in front of the public, even if she makes a mistake in the first place. Ariadne realizes that the cardinal is mad since he got a fraction of the idea that they do not get along, so Ariadne decides to play defensive and promises him that she will be more careful in the future so it doesn't repeat ever again. Then the cardinal brings up the topic to Isabella, asking her why she would start blabbering about her younger sister's body, since a fully grown lady should know when to speak and when not to speak, especially when it is about their younger sister. Instead of clarifying the incident to her father, Isabella starts crying in front of the dinner table, stating that she didn't say those things, blaming it on Camelia who questioned that Ariadne might have been the one who made the incident occur intentionally. After hearing that, the cardinal gets confused and Lucretia roars, saying that he should be believing his daughter more instead of listening to the others while embracing the devil, Isabella calling her pitiful. Then when the cardinal gets excited, shouting that he might have misunderstood the situation, frightened Arabella ends up dropping her food on the table, which makes the cardinal remark her activity as filthy and dirty. Even her own mother despises her actions when her father starts walking away without eating because of her and starts moving on her own with Isabella. As Arabella starts to cry, Ariadne comes in the middle to calm her down while suggesting that she can eat it slowly and head upstairs afterwards, stating that it isn't her fault. Arabella calms down after feeling the warmth of Ariadne's love and agrees with her opinion, so she continues to eat calmly. Meanwhile, Prince Alfonso is called into his mother's chamber for attending to the debutante ball of Ariadne, and as the situation gets tense between them, the queen hands him over a report of the Valois Grand Duchy of the Gallico Kingdom and its daughter, Larissa de Valois, who sent a marriage to a proposal to him, recalling being his engagement partner. The name Larissa starts to take so much of a heavy toll on Alfonso that he gets speechless all of a sudden, as he has never even met the woman in his whole life. That his mother informs him that the Gallico Kingdom's diplomatic delegation will be visiting the next month, since they are interested to talk about the marriage proposal in person. The main reason for Alfonso to be in his best behavior possible, so they can prevent the rumors about Alfonso being too close with a lady of some house in the kingdom. But even after hearing all of his mother's words, Alfonso remarks that Ariadne isn't some lady from some house, so she cannot just make her fall into that category. Alfonso also states that if she wants to blame someone for the debutante ball incident, he has to get blamed as well, since he attended the ball without her permission in the first place. After hearing that, the queen starts to lash out at Alfonso, since he isn't someone normal and the sole heir of the Etruscan Kingdom, which is the reason he cannot be positioned with any woman. The queen then starts to elaborate on his fixed partner, who is also at the marriageable age, having a great reputation, and if the whole scenario causes some kind of bad effect on Ariadne for the impossibility of their marriage, he would be the one blamed for it in the end. She then insists Alfonso that they should immediately stop sending letters to each other and meeting alone whenever they want from now on, before the matter gets even more serious in the future. In the next scene, Ariadne can be seen getting welcomed by her newly made friend on the debutante ball ceremony. The moment she arrives inside the mansion, she starts to wonder what kind of discussions the ladies might have in a tea ceremony, which starts to take a toll on her, wondering if she can cope around with these women. The moment she enters the place, she starts hearing one of them crying and yelling, wondering if the person she loves is about to marry her or not, despite the fact that she and her partner are both already engaged. Ariadne takes it lightly, knowing that these are the conversations the ladies might have in their prime, so she should take it all lightly. But the situation gets serious for Ariadne when she starts hearing the name of Isabella. She starts to listen to it more closely. It seems that Isabella has ruined her relationship with her partner, as the man was enchanted by Isabella rather than taking her side at that time. Ariadne realizes that Isabella is going so far as flirting with her close friend's man, while doing her best in high society, which is quite impressive. Ariadne suggests the lady not to worry, as she is merely messing with him, which startles the lady, as she wasn't expecting to see Ariadne in the party. Ariadne then adds that Isabella will start running away if her man approaches her, as she just loves their attention in the first place. Ariadne knows that she craves for attention, but when the situation gets serious, she will retreat and run away, knowing that she cannot handle the heat. The same thing was done to Cesare in her previous life. The lady starts to get better, and she thanks Ariadne for comforting her, praising her for her humbleness, while Ariadne considers it all as her sympathy. Then the lady starts to praise Ariadne for being such a nice sibling to Isabella, and she wonders why Isabella would talk so badly about Ariadne. The lady then exclaims, saying that only if she knew about Ariadne before, she would have stopped Isabella beforehand. Surprised, Ariadne asks her what she is talking about, and she then starts to reveal the truth, stating that Isabella was the one who spread the lie, that Ariadne intentionally ripped her dress for everyone to look at her. Not only that, but also, Isabella spread that Ariadne liked to show her breasts, and for the first time Ariadne realizes how toxic her half-sister can be. The lady doesn't stop there and elaborates that Isabella secretly wears breast pockets to make her breasts look bigger, as she thinks that Ariadne likes to show off her breasts. When Ariadne gets the whim of the whole incident, she learns that the lady is even eager to betray her own friends to get close to her one way or another, As she already knows, people like her would like to get close to someone one day just to stab her in the backs. Someday, so she cannot trust any of them in this whole scenario. But Ariadne is satisfied to learn what kind of place it really is, since it might be useful to her someday. After learning the whole theory behind it, Ariadne uses her chance to reveal the truth of what Isabella said to her father about Camelia, and everyone, including Camelia, starts to react after learning that. Camelia couldn't comprehend that Isabella would end up making such a lie about her, and Adrienne starts to use the option of using her sister's enemy against her, and she is happy with the fact that she ended up making Camelia hate Isabella, which might be useful to her in the future. Meanwhile, Cesare questions Ottavio how to seduce some woman who doesn't like him, and Ottavio is surprised that Cesare would ask him such a thing, while he is the expert of all women-related things, as he is the playboy of the capital. Then Cesare remarks how he has never chased a woman in his life before, and women always came up to him at first. Ottavio starts to gasp while listening to him and suggests him to going after the woman the old-fashioned way, which is by sending flowers and gifts, since there is no woman who would reject flowers and gifts. It makes Cesare realize why Ottavio isn't the popular one around women, which causes him to start reacting. Then in the next scene, Isabella is surprised to see that Cesare sent flowers to the house for her. It seems that Cesare also sent some dresses to the house, and Isabella gets excited to see them, as they were made by Collezione Boutique, which is her favorite one in the town. The moment she learns that it was all sent by Cesare himself from the men, she starts to blush, suggesting that they should bring the roses up to her room, while she starts trying on the dress immediately. But after hearing that, the man who came along with those things starts to stutter to remark that he sent all of those things for Ariadne instead, while Isabella starts to snap after hearing that. The men then reach Ariadne with the gifts and roses, and she is having a tough time accepting that Cesare would do such a thing for her. It seems that the guy also sent her a letter to her, which is full of appraisal and appreciating words for her, as they shared the dance together in her debutante ball. But instead of being happy, Ariadne's mood goes to waste, remembering her prior experiences with him in her previous life, and how he always went so far as to resemble her as something cheap which can be found anywhere on the street. She learns that now that the circumstances are different, he is treating her differently this time. She suggests the men take all of those things back to Cesare instantly, as she doesn't want to have any kind of relationship with him. Then the man starts elaborating on the fact that the roses will wilt as they are real, and when the man keeps on suggesting she should take the roses, she accepts, but her opinion about the dress stays the same till the end. But she also adds that the man can keep the roses away and outside of the room, so it is out of her sight after all, while having a serious look on her face. When the roses are kept outside of the room, Arabella is quite impressed to see such lovely roses full of a beautiful bouquet, and Isabella is losing her mind over the fact that those gifts weren't for her and starts reacting badly to her younger sister. When Arabella moves away, Isabella starts to contemplate the fact that Julia hosted a tea party excluding her, and then Ariadne was the one who was invited instead of her, and now Cesare sent all of those things only for Ariadne and not her, while she was getting proposed by him a while ago. She is annoyed by the fact that how can someone so pretty as she be ignored, while Ariadne is treated like she is some kind of goddess. Then, while Isabella is losing her mind over all of those things, her brother approaches her asking what is on her mind, who is the same loser Zanobi from the previous incident that happened a while ago. Isabella starts to explain what is happening, and after hearing all those things, the man starts to act like a white knight keeping his shield in his hands, and thinks of teaching Ariadne a lesson. Zanobi starts to think that if someone like Isabella is treating him nicely, he can now boast about it all to his friends back home, and besides, he thinks that there is a way for him to have a kiss from Isabella out of all this. Meanwhile, Arabella is mesmerized to know that Ariadne is about to attend the hunting competition, and asks her whom Ariadne thinks will be winning this time. Arabella hopes that a handsome knight wins when she attends the hunting competition once she is older, as she will surely hand over her handkerchief to that knight, as she dreams of marrying a handsome and courageous knight. Instead of barking like Isabella, Ariadne appreciates her thoughts, as there will be nobles of high status sharing idle talks in their tents, while the young men head out to catch the prey. Then in the end, as a form of admiration for the winner, the ladies would hand over their handkerchiefs, but even if they are not the winner, a lady can still hand over their handkerchiefs if they think that they are brave enough, as the event is mainly based on the fact that good-looking men and women would frequently fall in love. While Arabella continues to dream of what is about to come in the future, Ariadne promises to herself that she will be helping her to meet the man of her dreams someday. so she doesn't catch the Black Plague and die early like she did in the past life, which will surely change her destiny. Suddenly, a letter arrives for Ariadne, and when she thinks that it might be from Alfonso, she starts Arabella to reach for her time to have a lesson since her teacher would be arriving soon so she can read the letter alone. Since it is the first letter to her after the whole debutante hall incident, she wonders what might be written inside for her, but for some reason it is sent by Cesare, and she quickly rips the whole letter with her 2 hands. Seeing the shamelessness of the man, it seems that Caesar is determined to attain victory at the current year's hunting competition, and he was interested in knowing if she would be handing her handkerchief to him if he ended up attaining the golden deer. When the scene unfolds, Sancha realizes the man knows about Ariadne attending the hunting competition, and it seems that she sent a horse saddle especially made with deer leather for her, but since she already knows that Ariadne isn't about to accept the gift, she goes on to send the gift back to him once again. On the other hand, Ariadne is frustrated to know that Caesar is still talking about the golden deer in this life as well, and she is quite sick of it as the habit of sending gifts to her is a regular routine for him now, while Alfonso didn't write a single letter ever since the day of the debutante ball passed. It makes Ariadne think of if something really happened to him, or if he really started to get disgusted after seeing her giant and atrocious body, which made him hate her in the end. Anxious Ariadne starts to clench her fists, wondering if she is really about to meet him at the hunting competition. Then soon the day of the hunting competition arrives, and the king of the foreign delegation of Gallico arrives while the Etruscan king continues rubbing his mustache. As the head of the kingdom's foreign delegation, Duke Manhwa starts to praise the weather of the day. When the Etruscan Count Marquez proposes Duke Manhwa communicate while following the Etruscan conduct as they are in Etruscan, Duke Manhwa starts mocking the man while calling the Etruscan a small country, which starts to create a frustrating situation for Alfonso, who is almost speechless at that moment. Then, to clear up the cloud in the whole conversation, Alfonso's father jokingly starts saying that it is hard for his son to get married and decides to have a toast while setting aside language issues and other personal matters, but Alfonso doesn't seem to have any entertainment in this whole incident. Meanwhile, Count Cesare was heading in that direction to attend the hunting competition, with his men while discussing the Etruscan Prince Alfonso attending the occasion. When the conversation goes out of the boundary, Cesare states that he will be heading all alone for the day, so they shouldn't be following him since he has to find the golden deer. As his mates start to head in another direction, Ariadne is unfazed to see that Cesare still hasn't changed and never stopped looking for the golden deer after all. It seems that the tale of the golden deer goes a long way, since it is said that if someone washes their body in the water of immortality, which is supposedly the water that the golden deer drank from, the person will gain charms that nobody can resist. And above all that, the person who attains the golden deer is said to ascend the throne, and when it comes to that part, Cesare from the past strongly held that claim. The man said that he claimed to have seen the golden deer when he was young, and the reason for him being so handsome is because he washed his face in the water of immortality. But Ariadne doesn't believe any of it. While she was in her own thoughts all this time, she suddenly notices Alfonso standing next to her, but instead of speaking a single word, he looks down at the ground. Ariadne believes that the reason he is acting like that is that they are in a formal event, so she starts to giddy up her horse to move away, but she soon realizes that there is nothing much to do for her. Even though she wants to stay in the tent, but she knows that there are all of her art nymphs are present, so she thinks that it will be better for her to wander around the place instead. At that moment, Zenobia approaches her to have a conversation, but as she is already in a bad mood, she states that she doesn't have to say anything to him. She starts to move away. Suddenly, Zenobia starts to get rough, saying that she is daring to act up without knowing her place, as she thought of harassing his pitiful Isabella, and he also adds that he will not be standing still if she does that one more time. After hearing that, Ariadne smirks as he is fussing over this because she knows that he is trying to look good in front of Isabella, but she is ashamed to see him doing such a thing, as she is his cousin after all. When he acts like he didn't hear it all, Ariadne suggests he should mind his own business instead of minding others, as he doesn't have a single ducato to his name, which shocks the man. As she starts calling Zenobia names, he deliberately yells at her, demanding she should shut up, and when he starts to get enraged, he ends up taking his crossbow to shoot, which ends up hitting her horse. As the horse starts to run like crazy in the wild forest, Ariadne starts to contemplate if she should jump from the running horse, and if she does, she knows that she wouldn't stay intact, but even if she doesn't, she is about to jump off the cliff and die for sure. While Ariadne is losing all her hope, she notices Cesare calling out to her, suggesting that she should relax her legs and lean forward, but even though she follows his instructions, he realizes that isn't about to work the way he thought it would, so he decides to act. After suggesting that she should take her feet out from the stirrup, he ends up jumping away from her horse to embrace her, and they both fall off the horse as he ends up saving her in the end. As soon as Ariadne regains her consciousness, she starts to feel anxious about Cesare staying silent, doubting about his well-being and not knowing if he ended up dying after getting hit while falling down on the ground. When she goes on to check his breathing, the guy starts to talk as if nothing happened to him while cracking silly jokes with Ariadne, but it seems that Cesare has already hurt his arm quite badly, so he states that he wants to lie down for a little longer. To extend the joke even further, he makes a proposal to her saying that she can lie down on his hand as his arm is wide open already. But Ariadne feels like a cringe climbing down her spine. She suggests to him to stop joking around and get up, otherwise she would have to kick his arm to make him get up. When she goes on to hold his hand to make him get up, she realizes that his hand might be broken, so she starts to rip her skirt's outer layer to patch his hand up so he can feel better while moving his hand. When he asks about her capability of medications, Ariadne states that she has a moderate amount of experience as she had to grow up on a farm in the countryside. She then starts to hurry up, knowing that the sun will soon set and there is no way she wants to spend the night with him in the wild. As they start checking up on her horse, they realize that it is already dead, and Ariadne thinks that it might have caused the time the horse felt the abnormal shock in its neck. Suddenly, Cesare notices the crossbow bolt in the horse's body, and when he asks Ariadne about it, she decides not to answer, realizing that he might create a more complex situation after knowing about it. Cesare suggests she should talk about it on the way, as they are about to have a lot of time together on the same day. Cesare suggests Ariadne get up in front of the horse, but she insists that she will be walking down the road so he can ride the horse himself. He doesn't get the point of why she would refuse to ride the horse, and unfazed Ariadne claims that she has her own reasons since she doesn't want to be in his arms while riding the horse because of the prior experience with him. But Cesare continues to make even more silly jokes about her spending the night with him, which doesn't work at all on Ariadne since she already knows what she wants in the first place. Meanwhile, the Count of the Etruscan Kingdom is busy negotiating with the Gallicos Duke, since the one who was supposed to be Alfonso's companion was the Grand Duchess Suzanne, but now the situation is changed since the companion was changed from Suzanne to her little sister Ralisa. But the Gallico Kingdom's Duke isn't about to hear any excuses related to that, since they can do nothing, as Suzanne died in the most unfortunate way because she caught the plague. After her little sister Ralisa de Valois was chosen as the suited companion for Alfonso in the end. At that moment, the Count claims that the only thing that is about to fix the situation is increasing the dowry from what was agreed upon before, and all they are asking for is 20 cannons and the Gallico army's recipe for gunpowder, so the offer will be more suitable for the Etruscan king. After hearing everything, the Duke thinks that they are thinking way ahead of themselves, since they are asking for both cannons and gunpowder recipe, but according to the Etruscan Count, he isn't the one who intended to buy the inheritance of Etruscan's seat of power, though marriage, so he cannot be the judge of that. But the Duke isn't about to budge from his position and only thinks that the Etruscan authorities do not think highly of Ralisa, as if she isn't able to fill in for Suzanne. He makes a proposal saying that Ralisa will personally be visiting the kingdom of Etruscan, so the Etruscan authority is able to judge her quality before they get into a relationship to be sure whether she is suitable to become a queen. On the other hand, as Cesare and Ariadne are both riding through the forest, he keeps on insisting that they can be sitting together, but Ariadne sticks to her point, so that doesn't happen. At the same time, Cesare is astonished to hear that her cousin would do something like that to her, no matter how angry he was based on that time's situation, which almost ended up her killing her in the process. He suggests to her that she should have plunged a knife into Zenobi's horse beforehand, and he makes sure that from this time on, whenever she is in trouble, she can count on him, as he will be arriving to solve all of her problems right away. As they continue to bicker on their way to the outside of the forest, they both notice the golden stag drinking tea from a nearby lake, which astonishes Ariadne so badly that now all of her doubts have vanished in an instant. As she knows that the one taking the stag's head will be the king in the future, she notices Cesare glancing right at the stag as if he is targeting it. When she thinks that the guy will be leaving her to catch up to the stag, she starts getting off the horse so he can head into the stag's direction, so he can capture it. But it seems that the man is thinking otherwise. He isn't interested in catching the stag, since at that point he would have to leave her in the middle of the forest, and he doesn't want to do that. Exclaimed Ariadne asks why he wouldn't want that, as he explained the whole fascination of him catching the deer in his letters, and Cesare starts making jokes about her reading all of his letters carefully. When Cesare notices that the stag is gone, he goes on toward the pond thinking that it can be considered the fountain of youth, and suggests that she can also watch herself with him, thinking that her face might become beautiful because of it. As Cesare washes his face, Ariadne thinks that his face might sting after getting in touch with the water, and he confirms that it surely does. As Ariadne starts to wash her face, Cesare keeps on glancing at her face and takes the chance of kissing her forehead while she keeps on staring forward, shocked. As soon as Ariadne has gasped at the situation, she reacts almost instantly, and Cesare starts showing various excuses to cover himself. Ariadne realizes that being mad at him for acting sneaky wouldn't work much while feeling annoyed by the whole incident. She suggests that they should depart right away before the sun sets, and Ariadne still doesn't let Cesare ride the horse with her, which feels quite stingy to Cesare for the fact that he was the man who saved her from her trouble. Meanwhile, as Alfonso is sitting inside the royal tent with his parents, he starts to wonder about Ariadne, questioning himself if she personally went out to hunt on her own when she didn't seem like the type of person to enjoy that kind of physical activity. He then starts to wonder if she really went out to walk with some other man, and clenches his fist in agony, but that idea feels impossible to him to some extent, as her demeanor for him was unique and unchangeable. He knows that Ariadne shows her feelings only to him, so other men must not know about it, and at that time, the king's informant lets him know that Caesar didn't return, and when he learns about the information, he immediately commands his men to look out for him in the forest, as the sun is about to set soon enough. Then someone points in the direction of the forest, saying that he has returned with someone, and the person is none other than Ariadne. After seeing Ariadne and Cesare together, Alfonso is agonized inside, and the king is satisfied to see that his son is fine, so he runs up to his son while he represents his role for the king, announcing that his arm is fractured, so he cannot be properly greeting him the way he wanted. Then when the king questions him about his arm, Cesare lets him know that he was trying to save Ariadne while she continues to look the other way. He elaborates on the situation of how some wicked person attacked her using a hunting crossbow, which placed her in grave danger, so he had to act up, and if he wasn't there at the moment, it would have been a huge disaster. The king is shocked to learn about the situation, so he starts yelling at that moment, questioning both of them. How could someone commit such an atrocity in the sacred hunting competition? Even before Ariadne was about to say something, Cesare lets the king know about the man's identity, as he is none other than the cardinal's wife's nephew, Zenobia. The king starts to roar after getting to know about the incident, so he commands his men to bring him to him immediately, and Zenobia is presented in front of the king, tied up almost instantly. The king asks for the man's statement of the situation related to Ariadne, and the man starts to refuse the idea, claiming that he could never do such a thing since he spent the entire time inside the tents. After hearing his statement, Ariadne starts to smirk on her own, wondering how could he make such a false statement in front of her, as if he is thinking quite lowly of her. At that time, Ariadne makes her presence visible in front of the crowd to make some statements about the incident. She points out the idea that Caesar commented how he didn't attack her with a crossbow, whether that arrow hit her or missed her or hit the horse instead, was never once mentioned before. As the crowd is now excited, Zenobia tries to calm the situation, saying that it is all a huge misunderstanding, and while trying to keep the situation in his favor, he continues to make up the more complicated situation for himself, while Ariadne continues to provide more and more verbal evidence. Suddenly, Lucretia makes her entrance in front of the crowd to vouch for her nephew, blaming it all on Ariadne, announcing that she might have a grudge against him. As soon as Ariadne notices that Lucretia has joined in the confrontation, she is having a tough time deciding on what to do, since no matter what, she is still her stepmother, so she cannot be confronting her directly in public. When Caesar learns the direction of the incident, Caesar presents the arrow, which has Zenobia's family crest as well as his name at the same time. Ariadne is confused to see that Caesar would make his presence clear to vouch for her, while Caesar keeps on elaborating on the situation and how Ariadne was a huge risk at that time. Even when it wasn't enough, Caesar brings up the fact that even he was about to die in that situation, knowing that the king would react after hearing such a thing. While Cesare continues to help her, Ariadne promises to herself that even after all of these things, he wouldn't be gaining anything from her ever. The king then starts to make a judgment on the incident. Considering everything that Zenobia has done, he gets sentenced to 40 whippings, but Ariadne knows that such a punishment is only implemented for property damage, such as injuring a horse, while fully ignoring the fact that Zenobia intentionally attempted to murder Ariadne. But then, King also states that Zenobia will be forever banned from being ordained as a knight, and when Zenobia starts to overreact, the knights continue to contain him as he starts to curse Ariadne in front of the general public and nobles. Ariadne notices how Zenobia is taking such a situation that lightly. Considered that he wasn't granted death, she thinks that the man is such a garbage and waste of society. As soon as the judgment is made, Lucretia lashes out at Ariadne, blaming it all on her while cursing her, but instead of reaching for Ariadne, she ends up falling backward, fainting, while Zenobia is being whipped by knights. After all that, Ariadne is having a tough time to make a decision whether to thank Cesare or not, considering that he was the one who helped her in the end, while confused Alfonso keeps on standing away from them as he doesn't know what to do in that situation. As soon as Zenobia is inside the cardinal's mansion, he starts to interrogate the man about his intentions for hurting his own daughter, even though he had been providing for all of his expenses this whole timeline of 20 years. As Zenobia is interrogated, he ends up slipping the idea through his mouth and reveals that Isabella was the one who wanted him to do that, which starts to spiraling the situation even more. Isabella instantly starts to state that Zenobia is lying through his teeth, commenting on the fact that he has already lied in front of the king, so it shouldn't be a shocking thing to learn that he would also be lying at home in front of them. Then Zenobia claims how she was the one intended to teach Ariadne a lesson, and Isabella starts to brag how he was the one who intended to do that at first. But instead of focusing on their loser-like bickering, the cardinal asks Isabella what was done to her by Ariadne, that she ended up hating her that much, with a serious look on his face. When Isabella starts to stutter, he starts to remark how much harm it has caused to Ariadne, as she had to get rescued by some man in the forest, and comments how no one would do that to their younger sister, no matter how much they hate them. The cardinal announces that Isabella will now have to read the entirety of a historical book and finish writing a report on it, and until then, she will stay grounded inside the house. Then, when Isabella gets speechless, he orders his men to drag Zenobia outside so they can cut both his arms and ankles, while he starts to yell in fear and agony. As Zenobia's part gets resolved, the cardinal announces to Lucretia that he is a priest, which makes him unable to form his own family, so there was no way he will be making an announcement for her to make her his legally recognized wife, so he decided to take the best care of her instead, just because he was grateful to her. But until today, he decides that he will no longer keep his eyes closed because of these obvious reasons, as he knows that she had been secretly sending money to her own family. He remarks that he already knew about it way before, but he stayed silent about it since he was grateful to her, and announces that from now on Ariadne will be inspecting Lucretia's account book, so she will have to get the account book checked by her every week. Then he advises Ariadne that she doesn't have to keep her eyes blind just because she is her mother, and if she finds anything suspicious, she can bring up the topic to him privately. As the cardinal moves away, Lucretia starts to react harshly to Ariadne, calling her names, and Ariadne leaves the room to move on to her own to have a conversation with her maid, Sancha, as she doesn't know what to do. Sancha is rather happy to know that it finally happened, since she will now be able to get her some payback for all the unfair things that she done to Ariadne. After the incident is resolved, Ariadne is wiser, seeing how the play can get flipped for each and every small reasons. Then a few days later, Sancha arrives to Ariadne with the account book from Lucretia, and it seems that even though she didn't have the intentions to get them checked, Sancha managed to recover them forcibly. Ariadne notices the state of the account book is horrible, and while checking on the books, she starts asking Sancha about the matter that Lucretia had been receiving a lot of letters recently. According to Sancha, it seems that Lucretia's family is constantly pestering her while demanding for their living expenses and ordering her to send more money for the pitiful and crippled Zenobia. It seems that her family is constantly berating her while telling her to end her life and so on, which is a total mess. Sancha also lets Ariadne know that the deer leather saddle that was returned back to Cesare by her has arrived to her once again from Count Cesare. When Ariadne gets to read Cesare's letter, she starts to feel ecstatic inside her, and as she learns that he is talking about having a scar on his face because of their prior incident, she sends him a good ointment for scars along with a reply for him, while wishing him that he should create a happy family with some other woman instead of thinking about her. Ariadne decides to keep the letter and suggests Sancha to send the ointment back to Cesare along with the letter, which surprises Sancha. She leaves 3 more letters for Ariadne, and it seems that it was Alfonso wrote to her, who is ashamed of his father for making the punishment, despite the fact that Zenobia made a grave crime, while apologizing to her for not being able to see her in the hunting ceremony. He also invites Ariadne to the masquerade ball, which is about to take place in October, in the royal palace, as he hopes that they will be able to catch up on each other at that time, since he is missing her quite a bit and worried. Even though Ariadne admits that she had been reaching Alfonso ever since she came back in time to get out of the unfortunate events that happened in her previous life. After constantly meeting him, she even started to miss him at some point, but even so, it seems that Ariadne would never be able to make a place for him in her heart, no matter what. According to Ariadne, she thought of their relationship as a deal that benefited both of them, as she would marry Alfonso and break away from her parental household so she could block Cesare's treachery and help Alfonso ascend the throne unscathed. This was her intention from the start, and she even suppressed her sense of guilt and tried to get closer to him. The second time she met him, she seduced him, but she ended up feeling butterflies while forgetting all about her guilt, which turned into pleasure later. But now she has lost sight of her objectives after he let her heart be swayed by a single letter from Alfonso, realizing that she had been a fool in love and fort that she had thrown everything away and given up on her life. Ariadne realizes that she has to get her acts together and that she should be focusing on what she has to do as she makes up her mind, thinking that she will marry Alfonso in this life so he would be able to take her away from the Demir household. On the other hand, she will be able to prevent Cesare's treachery, but she won't be falling in love with Alfonso or with anyone else for that matter, as she will secure the spot beside the king and become the queen, which will be done for the sake of her freedom and safety. Meanwhile, in Lajon's dress shop living room, Lajon seems to have a fit after conversing with Ariadne for some reason, as she thinks that agreeing to her deal will be ruining the reputation of her dress shop, and at the same time she thinks that the cardinal will be cutting ties with them, saying that she cannot give Madame Lucretia a rebate. Rebate works as returning a portion of the sales to the buyer, and if Lucretia received a rebate from the dress shop, it would be the same as buying a dress for less than what is written in the account book in the first place, as it could be made into a secret fund. Ariadne knows this, and this is why, if a close associate of Lucretia intentionally spilled a rumor that Lajon's dress shop was offering rebates, she won't be able to resist trying it out, since it is the only way Lucretia has to secure her funds, and Ariadne plans that she will secure evidence that Lucretia has been receiving rebates, which will be crucial evidence to the cardinal. Once the cardinal's trust in her hit rock bottom, all the authority over the domestic economy of the Demir household will fall into Ariadne's hands. Ariadne then remarks the fact to Lajon to make her notice that there has been a huge increase in promotion because she was wearing a dress from the shop, and at the same time, even when the other dress shops asked her to offer her better deals, she had been rejecting them, which is all done to protect her relationship with Lajon's shop. Ariadne knows that if the incident gets reported, the Demir family will cut ties with the dress shop. However, Ariadne promises Lajon that she will continue to promote the dress shop through her, as she might be able to expand her business with her help. When Lajon asks about expanding the business, Ariadne advises her to open another store in someone else's name, as it would be good if the items were garments used by servants and linen used at home. Ariadne remarks if the household affairs of the Demir family fall into her hands in the future, she would need an outsourcing agent to handle all the garments and linen. According to Ariadne, even though there would be less profit per item, it will become a completely new market for Lajon, so she can secure the Demir household as a regular client and make her way through other noble families' households, since Ariadne will be helping her with that as well. The idea of the new arrangement sparks inside the mind of Lajon, and as Ariadne learns about it, she suggests Lajon contact her once she makes up her mind. Then a few days later, Sancha finds out that a fabricated purchase of the perfume on the day of 3rd August was made on behalf of Lucretia, and Ariadne is proud of her to see that she can now read without having any issues. Even so, Ariadne remarks that she cannot be touching Lucretia's personal expenses even on purpose, which makes Sancha react as it feels unbelievable to her. Then Ariadne makes her take a look at the receipt from Lajon's dress shop and commands Sancha to bring the closest servant to Lucretia to her, as she will have to set a mousetrap for her enemies. On the other hand, Cesare continues to read the boring letters sent by various noble ladies and continues to crumble them with his hand, as they are too boring for his taste. while he and his mates continue to poke through the piles of letters, and it seems that Cesare is even playing with the married ladies in the kingdom. His mate thinks that Cesare will be dying in the hands of a woman who would stab him in the back, and at that moment, Cesare was looking right at a single letter as a holy grail. The moment his mate goes on to touch it, he smacks the man, which gets him even more excited, but even till the last moment, Cesare keeps it secret and goes on to write another letter for Ariadne, promising that he will even dedicate the whole kingdom to her. At that time, Alfonso makes a proposal to the Count, asking him if he could invite Ariadne to the detached palace in the south, and the Count feels like the whole sky is about to crash down on his head after hearing the words out of Alfonso's mouth. He insists that Alfonso cannot have a female visitor at a time like this, and Alfonso thinks that it will be fine if it is a male visitor, just so he could dress Ariadne as a male so they both can spend quality time together. As Alfonso continues to daydream about it, he goes even further into his dreams, as if they are about to spend their whole life together. He knows that even though he cannot invite Ariadne specifically, he could meet her at this time at the masquerade ball after all. But the situation changes for him as he gets to know that Larissa is about to come to visit in time for the masquerade ball at the dinner table, even though the ceremony is known to celebrate St. Michael's birthday. The king starts to insist that the princess really wanted to attend, and since she wants to get married to Alfonso, she is rather sweet to him. Then his mother remarks that Princess Valo is Alfonso's guest, and which is the main reason he should escort her throughout the entirety of the masquerade ball, and it only has to be him particularly and no one else, so he can ensure that there would be no diplomatic issues. After going through the situation, Alfonso isn't ready to make another single comment about the situation, so he only continues to answer his mother's statements positively. Then he starts writing a letter to Ariadne, letting her know that there will be someone else visiting from the Gallico Kingdom, and he had been tasked with escorting the guest during the masquerade ball, but he really wanted to see her after a long time. He apologizes to Ariadne for not being able to do so and lets her know that he will be sending another letter at a later date with regrets. Ariadne starts to feel like everything is continuing to happen just like in her past life, and the guest from the Gallico Kingdom is Princess Larissa, who is Alfonso's prospective marriage partner. Even in the past, Larissa attended the ball and completely fell in love with Alfonso, but because of that specific incident, the marriage proposal turned to dust, which forced Alfonso to get married to Isabella. But according to Ariadne, it is fine if the woman is Larissa for some reason, and while she is conspiring to do something about her future, Arabella is poking around the room of Isabella. As soon as she enters the room, she is mesmerized to see that the room is filled with amazing and expensive jewelry, and after noticing them, she starts to wear each one of them continuously to try them on. At that time, she notices a hairpiece and realizes that the tips are amazing, and the moment she clasps one of them on her hair, the maid starts to call out to Ariadne, which gets her so scared that she ends up putting it inside some kind of chest to run away to check up on the mask that Ariadne ordered. Arabella goes on excitedly to check out the mask that Ariadne ordered, but when she notices that the whole hall room was filled with a serious atmosphere, she starts asking Ariadne out about it. The moment Ariadne looks back wearing her scary mask, Arabella shrieks terrifyingly, calling the mask quite ugly. Sancha also requests Ariadne not to wear the mask, and Ariadne starts to gasp after removing the mask, since she cannot talk while wearing it, since she has to bite on the clamp inside the mask to keep it in place. According to Ariadne, the mask is named Moretta mask, which is considered mute and Moretta, and when Arabella suggests she should order another one, Sancha states that they do not have enough time to make a new order. Ariadne starts to get into a tough situation, as she never thought that something like this would happen since she never used the same mask beforehand. As Ariadne is heavily dependent on her words, she is having a tough time wondering how she would have to keep herself quiet at the party. Soon after, a man comes in with a package, and it seems that Count Cesare has sent something once again. But the moment she thinks of sending back the gift once again, she finds a gorgeous mask inside it for her, which is supposedly a product of Collezione boutique, which is a piece that the Count paid good money for and had specially produced. Ariadne couldn't help but wonder why he would think of delivering the mask at the exact time. She knows if she accepts the gift, her worries will get delayed, but there is always a danger in building up a relationship with him. When Ariadne wants to send the mask back to the Count, Sancha starts to manipulate her into keeping the mask, remarking the fact that she will have to enjoy the ball till the end so she doesn't lose Alfonso. But Ariadne knows that this time Alfonso will be enjoying his time with Larissa anyway, and she ends up accepting the gifts sent by Cesare anyway. Then when the ball day comes, Sancha and Arabella wish her to have a good time, and dolled up Ariadne believes in herself, remembering that she should be enjoying her time for herself only. The moment Ariadne gets on the carriage, she realizes that Isabella is on the same carriage as her, and now she has to stick with her until they reach the palace without making a noise. Before they are about to leave, Arabella wishes them to bring home tons of fun stories for her, and even though Ariadne decides to act with optimism, Isabella doesn't say or do anything to assure her sister. When Ariadne takes a look at Isabella carefully, she realizes that Isabella is now wearing a mask that would be popular in 2 to 3 years, so she couldn't help but acknowledge her sense of fashion, as it is quite impressive. Also, as she is Isabella, she is always wearing dresses to stand out in the crowd, which will attract others for sure. Then Ariadne thinks to herself that if she excludes riding on a carriage with Isabella today, nobody would be able to know her identity at all, as people do not really have the knowledge to sense whom she is by looking at her outfit, as her expressions are hard to read among the others. But somehow it feels like a breakaway to Ariadne for some weird reason. Meanwhile, Larissa meets with Alfonso and states to him that she has heard a lot about him from the others, and after saying that, she begins her introduction to Alfonso. As Alfonso introduces himself to Larissa, he assures her that they can continue communicating in Gallican if that would be more comfortable for her to keep her confidence. It seems that Larissa is trying too hard to get a grasp on her Etruscan language, as her father is quite enthusiastic about their household education. But it seems that Gallican King was most considerable when it came to her sister Suzanne's education. For that reason, Larissa is thankful to her father that she learned a lot about literature, embroidery, music, and the arts. Then, according to her, when it comes to literature and conversation skills, her sister Suzanne was especially outstanding compared to her, and she was the best considering her looks as well. She also knows that people longed for her sister more than they did for her. And then Alfonso remarks that she also has beautiful white skin, so she shouldn't be talking about her sister so much to make her feel better. When he insists that she should be talking more about herself, Larissa feels like she is starstruck, as all her life she grew under the shadow of her sister, who excels in every aspect possible. Even though she loved her sister so much, she also resented her, while on the outside she envied and praised her sister, as everyone was only interested in her. As nobody was interested in hearing her stories, she just had to talk stories about her sister to receive their affection. But now, all her thoughts are changed just after hearing these words from Alfonso. For the first time, Larissa feels like someone is interested in her only, and Alfonso just became her dream prince. She thanks her sister for dying, as she promises that she will look good for the prince. She asks Alfonso if she can paint him in a still life painting, as she likes painting flowers or vases in order to look good in his eyes. She starts to brag about herself, letting him know that she even won a prize at the Fried Montpellier a few years ago, and when he remarks that the award is only made for married women, she shrieks after knowing that since even Suzanne was awarded. As soon as Alfonso meets eye to eye with Ariadne, he almost goes speechless, and he asks Ariadne if he ended up meeting the right person hurriedly. After seeing Alfonso's ability to guess her identity, Ariadne asks Alfonso how he has gotten all the way outside in the garden, and Alfonso lies to her about the situation, saying that he was strolling through the garden and ended up in front of her. Then Ariadne starts to wonder what might have happened to Larissa, and even though she wanted to ask him that, she doesn't think that they do not have that kind of relationship, so she skips that matter. While she was having a hard time beginning their conversation, Isabella was sneakily looking at both of them through the bushes and guessed that Ariadne was having a secret rendezvous with Prince Alfonso. Meanwhile, as Cesare was walking down the stairs, he felt happy that nobody could find out his identity and thinks of the day as a great day, but he thinks that it is a pity that he has to cover his pretty charismatic face, and accepts it anyways. He thinks that no matter what the situation is, it will be worthwhile for him to check how effective it is for the women around him. Suddenly, someone behind him calls him by his name, which shatters his dreams even in the beginning, and instead of hearing from the woman, he starts to head on, while the woman starts to call him from behind, recognizing his voice. He knows that he has to pretend like that even if he just met an old friend, because this is the beauty of the masquerade ball. As he continues to stroll on his own, he knows for a fact that he hasn't been attending the ball ever since he was a kid. He reminisces about himself running through the garden as a kid, the time when he hated his mother for scolding him all the time, but instead he liked the queen, as she always gave him snacks whenever he came to play. He would always happily head over to the queen instead of caring about her identity, as he reminisces how the king used to love Alfonso more while calling himself his only heir. As soon as he noticed the king playing with Alfonso, the king would head over to him to slap him on the face, yelling at him and saying that he doesn't have the allowance to enter the royal palace as he wishes. He would scold him, saying that he has to return to his mother, and when he claimed that he wanted to play with his mother and father, he would always disregard the fact that he was his father after all. He would scold him so much that he would cry while looking down at the ground, and even the queen started looking down on him. As Alfonso cried in shock, both the king and the queen would continue taking care of their son, making him remember that he doesn't have a single good memory inside the royal palace. While reminiscing through the past, he notices Alfonso and Ariadne together, making him realize that he isn't about to have any good memories of the place. Anyways, as the person whom he is interested in is with Alfonso right now. As Alfonso continues to have a chat with Ariadne, both of them hold hands together, and suddenly, Cesare makes his entrance, taking Ariadne's hand in his hand, which shocks Ariadne. When Alfonso notices the unknown man, he suggests to him that he should better go away as he doesn't know him, and at that time, the crown from his head falls down on the ground. At that moment, Caesar reveals his face, expressing that he doesn't have to show his courtesy to the royal family as it is the masquerade ball. Both Ariadne and Alfonso are shocked that the unknown man is no one other than the count himself, and Caesar recalls how he doesn't find the occasion amusing as the prince told him to let go of Ariadne. He insists that the one who should be getting his hands away from Ariadne is indeed Prince Alfonso and not him, as he begins questioning him about Princess Larissa. Cesare advises him not to play with an innocent lady's heart, to go look for his valued foreign princess, and at that moment, Cesare takes his hand over to Ariadne to come with him, remarking the fact that she should let Alfonso go away. When Ariadne is having a hard time guessing about the state guest, Cesare shames Alfonso for not even telling her who the guest was in the first place. After hearing everything, Ariadne suggests to Alfonso that he should go on to look for Princess Larissa, and she is also about to accompany him in doing that. After hearing Ariadne, Cesare starts to react, asking Ariadne if she doesn't feel mortified, asking Ariadne if she doesn't know that she cannot be with Alfonso since he is discussing marriage with the princess of the Gallico kingdom. Cesare tries to convince Ariadne to leave him alone, but Ariadne proves him otherwise, saying that she doesn't have any kind of relationship with Alfonso, which shocks Alfonso as well. Ariadne remarks that she was never asked out and she doesn't meet him with any kind of personal motive, suggesting to him that he shouldn't be looking at their friendship in a bad light. After hearing Ariadne, Alfonso regrets her not telling her about his feelings and not elaborating on the matter of Larissa to her. As the conversation takes a difficult turn, Cesare introduces Ariadne as her admirer and even asks her hand in marriage, considering that he will be sending a marriage proposal to her house in the early morning, suggesting to Ariadne that she should send Alfonso away immediately. Thanks for watching the second part of Sister. I am the queen in this life. This will be all for today, and if you want to support the channel, just click on the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Let us know in the comments if you want to see the next part of the manhwa. See you again next time.